You are back from South Korea. From looking at its nuclear power industry, you're promising nuclear power stations here if you win the election. The criticism from the government is that nuclear costs too much, it will take too long to build here to stop us running out of electricity, among other things for smelters. What did you find?
Andrew, I found in South Korea an industrial powerhouse, a country that uses a balanced mix of energy. They have around about 30% of their energy mix coal, around another 30% gas, and another 30% nuclear, with the remainder includes indeed some renewables. And they pay somewhere between, maybe a half to a third of what we pay in Australia, which is why they are just so successful when it comes to manufacturing. And when you go through these enormous facilities like I did last week, what you see is not a country that has cheap labour, and that explains why they're so good at manufacturing. You are talking about a country that does things at scale, great sophistication, and great automation. All of those things require an insatiable amount of energy, and you can only do that if energy is affordable and is always on. Baseload power energy is key. I mean, I arrived home on Friday, Andrew, and after seeing all this and talking to a lot of the energy experts in Korea, understanding the balanced energy mix, how they get prices down, keep the lights on, and then on Monday, we have the Prime Minister out there saying that our aluminium smelters are going to run entirely on wind and solar and batteries. It is madness. And I don't know what they would have said in South Korea if I told them that last week. I really don't.
Oh, look, it is ridiculous. But let me go to this point here. South Korea's Korea Electric Power Corporation, commonly known KEPCO, recently built 4 nuclear power plants in the United Arab Emirates. It took them 9 years to build each of them. Do you think it could do the same for Australia? Is that why you were going there? Is that what you were looking at, whether someone like KEPCO could come and do the same thing for us?
Andrew, that was why I was there. We have to be humble enough as a nation to know that we are not managing the energy system well. There are other countries that are doing it right now. As the rest of the world is developing nuclear energy, we have South Korea is one of those nations which is exporting their technology and supply chain to the world. And I was privileged last week to meet a lot of the companies in that supply chain, to see their operations. And you're right, pointing to the UAE plant, this is the Baraka plant, they built that on time and on budget. The UAE had a clean sheet of paper on nuclear technology, unlike Australia, because we already are a nuclear nation. And yet, right now, nuclear energy represents about 25% of the UAE's energy mix. South Korea did that on time, on budget. We can learn from them, and that's what really we were doing last week.
Now, obviously, you can't commit to anything. It's absurd. But, haven't talked price, you haven't talked anything. But did they give you any indication that were things to fall into place, someone like KEPCO could do it for us as well?
We certainly heard, Andrew, from right across the supply chain that they are interested in working with Australia. It was a similar message, by the way, I've heard from the Americans, from the Canadians, from the UK, from Japan, and now from South Korea. Indeed, they look at Australia and say, well, Australia has ample capability. You already are a nuclear nation. Your civil construction sector is first class. We're keen to work with you. And when you look at whether you're talking about, Daewoo, Samsung, Hyson, Doosan, these companies, Doosan, for example, it is probably the biggest supplier of materials for nuclear power plants in the world. They look at Australia and they absolutely can supply, and they're keen to. Now, I'm not making any preemptive decisions here either, by the way.
No, look, I know. I preface it like that. Look, I'm just talking about, is it, off the scale to even think about it? Clearly it's not. Clearly they would be interested. Everything came right. And you're not committing and they're not committing. But fascinating stuff. Ted O'Brien, I suspect we're going to hear a lot more about that later on. Thank you so much indeed for your time.